Forgotten bloom. Sofia Navarro's hands moved with practiced grace as she trimmed the stems of fresh daisies. The morning light filtered through the small apartment window, casting a warm glow on her workspace. At 32, she had mastered the art of creating beauty from simple things, though lately she struggled to see any beauty in her own life. "Are you still playing with flowers?" Nathan's voice carried from the doorway, the slight curl of his lip making the question feel like an accusation rather than interest. "I thought you'd be dressed by now. The Hendersons' dinner starts in an hour." Sofia glanced at the clock, her heart sinking. "I mentioned this morning that I needed to finish this arrangement for Mrs. Porter's birthday. She's been my loyal customer for 3 years, Nathan. I can't let her down. And I've been your boyfriend for 5 years, but that doesn't seem to stop you from letting me down." Nathan straightened his designer tie, a gift from Sofia that had cost her 2 weeks of savings. "The Hendersons could have been important, connections for my promotion." "I can be ready in 20 minutes, Sofia offered, already setting aside her work despite knowing the arrangement would suffer for it. "The flowers can wait until tomorrow. Don't bother, I'll tell them you're sick again." The disappointment in his voice felt heavier than any bouquet she'd ever carried. "It's just, sometimes I wonder if you'll ever take anything seriously." The irony wasn't lost on Sofia. She took everything seriously. Her small business that she'd built from nothing. Her relationships, even Nathan's career aspirations that seemed to consistently overshadow her own dreams. But somehow, in his eyes, her passion was just a hobby. Her dedication merely stubbornness. After Nathan left, Sofia returned to her flowers, but her usual joy in arranging them had wilted. 5 years ago, when they'd met at her best friend's wedding, where she'd done the flowers, of course, Nathan had seemed charmed by her creativity. "You see the world differently," he'd said then, with genuine admiration. Somewhere along the way, different had become synonymous with difficult in their relationship. The following evening, Sofia waited at Westlake Bistro, Nathan's favorite restaurant. She'd made reservations to celebrate his birthday, arranging to leave her small flower shop early despite it being Valentine's week, her busiest time. The candle on their table had burned down an inch when her phone chimed with a text, "Caught up at work." Rain check, no apology, no acknowledgement of the occasion. Sofia stared at the message, remembering the dozen similar texts over the past year. She paid for the untouched wine and walked home through the February chill, the special boutonniere she'd made him still in her purse. 3 days later, Nathan was unusually attentive, bringing coffee to her shop and watching her work. For a moment, Sofia felt a flicker of the connection they once shared. "You've always been good with your hands," he remarked, and Sofia smiled at what seemed like recognition at last. Then he added, "Too bad it doesn't pay better. Jane at work just got promoted to senior marketing director. Must be nice to have a real career." The word stung more than any thorn ever could. "My work is real, Nathan, just because it doesn't come with a corner office." "That's not what I meant," he interrupted, though they both knew it was exactly what he meant. "I just think you could be doing more, that's all. You're smart enough for something bigger than this little shop." Sofia looked around at her little shop, the space she'd saved for years to rent, the designs that local brides requested by name, the window display that had been featured in the community paper. To Nathan, it would never be enough. 2 weeks later, over dinner at her apartment, Nathan was unusually quiet. Sofia had prepared his favorite meal, hoping to bridge the growing distance between them. "I've been thinking," he finally said, setting down his fork. "We want different things, Sofia." Her hands grew cold. "What do you mean?" "Olivia Green asked me to head her campaign team. It's a huge opportunity." "That's wonderful," Sofia interrupted, genuinely happy for him. "We can make it work with your new schedule." Nathan's expression shifted to something like pity. "Sofia, Olivia and we've been seeing each other. She understands my ambitions, my world. We want the same future." The room seemed to spin as Nathan continued talking about growing apart and natural transitions. All Sofia could think about were the 5 years she'd spent nurturing a relationship that, like a flower in the wrong soil, had been doomed from the start. When he left that night, taking his carefully organized belongings, Sophia stood among her flowers, the only consistent source of joy in her life. They didn't judge her choices or find her passion inadequate. In their silent presence, she made a promise to herself. She would no longer dim her light for someone else's comfort. What she didn't know then was that across town, a man named Ethan Whitfield was searching for something genuine in a world of artifice, and that their paths would soon beautifully collide. Whispers among petals. 3 months after Nathan's departure, Sophia's apartment above her flower shop, Petal and Stem, had transformed into a haven of renewal. Gone were Nathan's monochromatic preferences, replaced by vibrant throw pillows and botanical prints that truly reflected her aesthetic. The painful emptiness that had initially engulfed her gradually gave way to a tentative sense of liberation. April showers had brought May flowers, quite literally for her business. Wedding season approached, and Sophia immersed herself in client consultations and seasonal arrangements. Her work became both escape and healing. These invoices aren't going to balance themselves, Sophia muttered one Tuesday evening, squinting at her laptop. The business side of her passion remained her greatest challenge. Nathan had always handled their finances, a dynamic that, in retrospect, had kept her dependent on his approval. A gentle knock at the shop door startled her. The closed sign had been turned hours ago, but through the glass, she spotted a tall figure in a charcoal coat, his expression apologetic for the interruption. "I'm sorry," Sophia called, opening the door slightly. "We're closed until tomorrow." "I completely understand," the man replied, his voice warm with genuine courtesy. "I was hoping for a miracle. My mother's 70th birthday is tomorrow, and I've been in meetings all day." He ran a hand through his dark hair, slightly disheveled from the spring breeze. "She loves hydrangeas. Says they remind her of growing up in the Pacific Northwest." Something in his earnest demeanor, so different from Nathan's calculated charm, made Sophia hesitate. "Hydrangeas aren't in season locally yet, but I have some special ordered blue ones in the cooler for a client who just canceled." Relief washed over his features. "You'd be saving me. I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Whitfield." "Sophia Navarro," she replied, fully opening the door. "Come in while I check what I can do." As she worked in the back room, Sophia could see Ethan, through the doorway, examining a display of her botanical jewelry. Pressed flower pendants she'd started creating during sleepless nights after the breakup. "These are extraordinary," he commented when she returned with pale blue hydrangeas and white ranunculus. "Did you make them?" "A recent experiment," she admitted, beginning to arrange the flowers. "My mother taught me pressed flower techniques when I was young. I've been incorporating them into wearable pieces lately." "You're talented," Ethan said, the simple observation delivered without the condescending tone Nathan would have used. "My mother would love these. She's an artist herself, watercolors primarily." As Sophia crafted the arrangement, Ethan described his mother's upcoming birthday celebration, a small gathering at her favorite restaurant. There was something refreshing about his manner, the way he spoke about his family with unabashed affection rather than strategic networking value. "What made you choose flowers?" and he asked while she wrapped the bouquet in rustic brown paper and twine. "As a career, I mean." The question caught her off guard. Nathan had never asked why she loved flowers, only questioned when she would move on to something substantial. "Flowers speak when words fail," she found herself explaining. "They're present at our most significant moments. Births, weddings, even deaths. They're temporary but meaningful, like the best parts of life." Ethan studied her with interest that felt neither judgmental nor performative. "That's beautiful," he said simply. After he paid and thanked her profusely for accommodating his after-hours request, Sophia assumed their paths would never cross again. She was wrong. 3 days later, Ethan returned, this time during business hours. "The hydrangeas were a hit," he announced, smiling. "My mother wanted to know who created such a thoughtful arrangement." Sophia blushed, unused to appreciation. "I'm glad she enjoyed them." "She also asked about these," Ethan added, gesturing. toward the botanical jewelry. She wondered if you'd take commissions. Thus began a pattern. Ethan would visit the shop every few weeks, ostensibly for gifts or commissions, but their conversations gradually extended beyond transactions. She learned he had founded a sustainable architecture firm that transformed abandoned urban spaces into community gardens and affordable housing, a detail he mentioned casually, without the status signaling Nathan had constantly employed. Meanwhile, Sophia struggled financially. A pipe burst in the shop's bathroom, resulting in unexpected repairs. Then her delivery van needed a new transmission. Each setback required dipping into her dwindling savings. "You seem worried," Ethan observed one afternoon as she calculated shipping costs for a wedding order. "Just business challenges," she said, forcing lightness into her tone. "Nothing I can't handle." "I don't doubt that," he replied. After a moment's hesitation, he added, "My firm is hosting a charity gala next month for urban green spaces. We need a florist. Would you be interested?" Sophia's initial instinct was suspicion. Nathan had often disguised control as assistance. Are you offering this because you feel sorry for me?" "Absolutely not," Ethan said firmly. "I'm offering because your work is exceptional, and because flowers that speak when words fail is exactly the aesthetic we want. It's a paid commission, Sophia, not charity." The gala represented her largest contract to date. Working late into the night preparing arrangements of locally sourced wildflowers and sustainable greenery, Sophia felt both terrified and exhilarated. Without Nathan's voice in her ear questioning her capabilities, she allowed herself to embrace the challenge. The evening of the event, Sophia delivered and installed her creations throughout the renovated warehouse space. Elegant compositions of ferns, meadow flowers, and branches transformed the industrial setting into an enchanted urban forest. "These exceed everything I imagined," Ethan said, finding her adjusting a centerpiece. Unlike her usual clients who admired her work generally, he noticed specifics: the structure, the unexpected combinations, the intentional asymmetry. "Thank you for trusting me with this," Sophia replied, a confidence in her voice that had been absent for years. As guests arrived, Sophia prepared to leave, feeling out of place among the well-dressed attendees. Ethan intercepted her at the door. "You're not staying?" he asked, disappointment evident. "Your creations are the centerpiece of this evening. You should see how everyone reacts to them." "I didn't bring anything appropriate to wear," she admitted, gesturing at her work clothes. "You look perfectly appropriate to me," Ethan said. "But if you're uncomfortable, maybe we could compromise. Stay for just 1 hour. There's someone I'd like you to meet." That someone turned out to be the events coordinator for the city's botanical garden, who, by evening's end, had offered Sophia the opportunity to design for their annual fundraiser. As she spoke with potential clients who admired her work, Sophia realized something profound. Her talent had always been there, waiting for environments where it could be recognized rather than diminished. Walking her to her van later, Ethan asked, "Would you consider having dinner with me sometime? Not for work, just because I'd like to know you better." Looking at him in the gentle evening light, Sophia felt both terror and possibility. Nathan's shadow still loomed large in her mind, but for the first time since their breakup, she found herself wanting to step beyond it. "I'd like that," she answered softly, her voice carrying the tentative promise of new beginnings. What neither of them knew was that Nathan had attended the gala as a guest of one of Ethan's investors, and had recognized Sophia's distinctive style in every arrangement that adorned the room. Thorns of the past Sophia's flower shop buzzed with unprecedented activity as June bloomed into July. The Botanical Garden fundraiser had led to features in local lifestyle publications, and Petal and Stem suddenly found itself the florist of choice for discerning clients throughout the city. For the first time since opening her shop, Sophia hired an assistant, Mia, a botany student with quick hands and a quicker smile. "Another delivery just arrived," Mia announced, carrying in a box of specialty dahlias. "And 3 more wedding consultations called for appointments this week." Sophia wiped her brow, simultaneously overwhelmed and elated. "We might need to start a waiting list at this rate." Their conversation was interrupted by the shop door opening, the bell's cheerful jingle announcing a customer. Sophia looked up with her professional smile in place, only to feel it freeze on her face. Nathan stood in the entrance, more polished than she remembered in his tailored suit and new haircut. His familiar cologne, the one she'd given him 2 Christmases ago, wafted through the shop, stirring unwelcome memories. "Sophia," he greeted, his smile confident as ever. "Your shop looks different." She straightened, acutely aware of Mia's curious gaze. "Nathan, this is unexpected. I was hoping to catch you alone," he said, eyeing Mia meaningfully. "Mia, could you check on the refrigerated deliveries?" Sophia asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Once they were alone, she turned to Nathan. "What do you want?" "You've been making quite a name for yourself," he observed, trailing his fingers across a display of her botanical jewelry, pieces that had recently been commissioned by a high-end boutique downtown. "I always said you had potential." The revisionist history stung. "No, you always said I was wasting my time. What are you really doing here, Nathan?" His expression shifted to one she recognized well, the calculated sincerity he employed when navigating difficult clients. "I saw your work at the Whitfield Architecture Gala. Impressive connections you're making these days." "Ethan values my work," she replied simply. "Ethan Whitfield," Nathan repeated, a hint of derision coloring his tone. "I looked him up after seeing you two together. Quite the golden boy of sustainable development. Tell me, does he know you used to arrange carnations for grocery stores to make rent?" The deliberate diminishment, so familiar it almost felt like coming home, sparked not pain but clarity. "Yes, actually. I told him about building my business from nothing. He found it admirable." Nathan's smile tightened. "I've been thinking about us, Sophia. Things with Olivia didn't work out as expected." "I'm sorry to hear that," she responded, surprised to find she genuinely meant it. "We rushed things," he continued, moving closer. "I've missed your steadiness, your support. Now that you're finding success, maybe we could—" The bell above the door jingled again. Ethan entered carrying 2 coffee cups. He stopped short at the sight of Nathan, his expression shifting from surprise to careful neutrality. "I'm sorry, am I interrupting?" he asked, looking to Sophia for cues. Before she could respond, Nathan extended his hand. "Nathan Caldwell, I'm Sophia's boyfriend." The silence that followed felt thick enough to cut with garden shears. "Ex-boyfriend," Sophia corrected firmly. "Nathan was just leaving." Nathan's composure faltered momentarily before he recovered with practiced grace. "Actually, I was hoping to discuss the West Ridge Corporation event with you. They're looking for a florist, and I mentioned your name." "Westridge?" Ethan interjected, setting the coffees down. "Harold Westridge's development company?" Nathan's eyes narrowed fractionally. "You know them?" "Their proposed development would demolish the community gardens in Mill Creek," Ethan explained, his tone measured but direct. "The same gardens that provide fresh produce to the local food bank and green space for the neighborhood." Sophia felt her chest tighten. Nathan knew how passionately she felt about community gardens. She'd volunteered at one throughout college. This wasn't coincidence, it was calculated. "Business is business," Nathan shrugged. "And it could be very good business for Sophia. 6 figures, potentially." The old Sophia might have been intimidated by the opportunity, might have questioned whether she could afford to turn down such a contract. The new Sophia, the one who had learned to value herself, felt only disappointment. "I'll pass," she said quietly. "My business model includes ethical considerations." Nathan's expression hardened. "Still the idealist. This is why you struggled for so long, Sophia. You think small." "No," Ethan interrupted, his voice gentle but firm. "She thinks deeply." "There's a difference." Nathan's gaze shifted between them, reassessment evident in his eyes. "I see. Well, when you're ready for serious opportunities, my offer stands." He nodded curtly to Ethan. "Whitfield." After Nathan left, silence filled the shop. Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she arranged stems in a nearby vase. "I'm sorry about that," she finally said, not meeting Ethan's eyes. "Nathan and it's complicated." "You don't owe me explanations," Ethan replied. "But are you okay?" The simple question, focused on her well-being rather than demands or expectations, nearly undid her. "I will be. Nathan has a way of making me question myself." "For what it's worth," Ethan said carefully. "I don't think you should question your decision about Westridge. Your principles are part of what makes your work special." She looked up at him then, searching his face for signs of the manipulation she'd grown accustomed to. Instead, she found only genuine respect. "The coffee's getting cold," he said, changing the subject with intuitive understanding of her need for space. "I thought you might need it. Mia mentioned you've been working since 5 this morning." 2 weeks later, Sophia found herself at the Riverside Farmers Market, selecting locally grown flowers for an upcoming wedding. The bride had requested wildflowers and heirloom roses, a combination that perfectly matched Sophia's aesthetic. "Fancy meeting you here," came Nathan's voice from behind her. "Twice in 1 month. Must be fate." Sophia turned, clutching her purchases. "Are you following me?" "Don't flatter yourself," he replied smoothly. "I'm meeting clients nearby. But since we've crossed paths, I wanted to update you on Westridge. They found another florist, less talented but more practical." "I'm glad it worked out for everyone," Sophia said, attempting to step around him. Nathan blocked her path subtly. "You know, you've changed. There was a time when you valued my guidance." "There was a time when I didn't value myself," she countered. His expression darkened. "Is that what your new boyfriend tells you? Does he know you're damaged goods, Sophia? That you'll never have the ambition to be more than a small-time shopkeeper playing with flowers?" Each word struck with practiced precision, targeting insecurities Nathan had spent years cultivating. Sophia felt her throat tighten, old doubts resurfacing despite her progress. "The difference," came Ethan's voice as he approached carrying fresh bread and cheese for their planned picnic, "is that some people see a small-time shopkeeper. Others see an artist whose medium happens to be living things, an artist who brings beauty and meaning to people's most significant moments." He stood beside Sophia, not possessively but supportively. "Perception reveals more about the observer than the observed." Nathan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "How poetic. I didn't realize we had an audience." "You don't," Ethan replied calmly. "You have someone who recognizes Sophia's worth without needing to diminish it." For a moment, Nathan seemed ready to continue the confrontation. Then, assessing the situation with the calculated precision that had served his career, he simply nodded. "Take care, Sophia. When the novelty wears off, remember who knew you when." As Nathan walked away, Sophia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you," she whispered to Ethan. "Not for defending me, but for seeing me." Ethan's hand found hers, warm and steady. "You were standing up for yourself just fine. I just added commentary." Walking together through the market, their purchases creating a promise of shared afternoon plans, Sophia realized something profound. The thorns of her past relationship had taught her not just about pain, but about recognizing genuine nurturing when it finally appeared in her life. That evening, sitting on a blanket by the river sharing bread and stories, Sophia gave voice to the fear that had been shadowing her growing feelings for Ethan. What if I'm just replacing one relationship with another? Going from Nathan's validation to yours? Ethan considered her question with the seriousness it deserved. "The difference is that I don't want to be your validator. I want to be your partner. There's a world of difference between someone who needs you to be small so they can feel big, and someone who wants you to grow because they admire who you are." As fireflies began to illuminate the deepening twilight, Sophia allowed herself to believe that perhaps this gentle recognition of her whole self, was what love was meant to be all along. Seeds of courage. August arrived with a heat wave that sent Sophia scrambling to keep her flowers fresh and her tiny shop cool. The ancient air conditioning unit wheezed valiantly but provided minimal relief. Despite the challenging conditions, petal and stem continued to flourish. "I've been thinking about expansion," Sophia confided to Mia one sweltering afternoon as they prepared arrangements for a gallery opening. "Not just physically, but conceptually. Remember my pressed flower jewelry?" Mia nodded enthusiastically. "The pieces that sold out at the artisan market last month? I want to create a dedicated line. Preserved beauty, botanical jewelry, pressed flower art, even resin-preserved bouquets from special occasions." Sophia's eyes lit up as she described her vision. A way to make ephemeral beauty last. "That sounds amazing," Mia replied. "But where would you put it all? We're already cramped in here." It was a valid question. The shop, charming as it was, had become insufficient for Sophia's growing business. Customers sometimes had to sidestep each other in the narrow aisles, and her workspace doubled as storage for excess inventory. "There's a vacant space 2 doors down," Sophia admitted. "I've been looking at it for weeks." "You should go for it," Mia exclaimed. Sophia's excitement dimmed slightly. "It requires significant renovation, and the lease terms—" Nathan's voice echoed in her memory. "This is why you struggled for so long. You think small." The doubt he'd planted had grown tenacious roots despite her efforts to uproot it. That evening, Sophia pored over financial projections at her kitchen table. The expansion made sense on paper. Her revenue had increased steadily since the botanical garden event. But fear clouded her judgment. What if she overextended? What if this surge of success was temporary? Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Just thinking about you. Hope your day bloomed beautifully." Over the past month, their relationship had developed with the same thoughtful care Sophia gave her most delicate flowers. Ethan respected her independence while offering support that never felt like control. He'd become her confidant, but she hadn't yet shared her expansion dreams, afraid they might seem either too ambitious or not ambitious enough. After a moment's hesitation, she called him. "Can I run something by you?" she asked after they exchanged greetings. "It's about the shop." "I'm all ears," Ethan replied, his voice warm. As Sophia outlined her vision for preserved beauty, her confidence grew with each detail shared. Ethan asked insightful questions about logistics and marketing that helped crystallize her thinking rather than diminish her enthusiasm. "It sounds perfect for you," he said when she finished. "A natural evolution of your artistry." "But the financial risk," she began, "is real," Ethan acknowledged. "But calculated risks are how businesses grow. Have you spoken with Josephine at First Community Bank? She specializes in small business expansion loans." The practical suggestion, offering tools rather than taking over, exemplified what made Ethan different from Nathan. He didn't tell her what to do. He helped her figure out how to do what she wanted. The following week, Sophia met with Josephine, who reviewed her business plan with professional interest. "Your growth trajectory is impressive," the banker noted. "And you've built solid community relationships. Let me see what loan options we can offer." Walking out of the bank, Sophia felt lighter than she had in months. Whether or not the loan was approved, she had taken control of her future, a step that would have seemed impossible a year ago. She was so preoccupied with possibilities that she almost collided with a familiar figure on the sidewalk. "Sophia?" Olivia Green, Nathan's former paramour and the reason for their breakup, stood before her, impeccably dressed in a linen suit despite the heat. "Olivia," Sophia managed, unsure of the proper protocol for greeting the woman your ex-boyfriend had left you for. "How are you?" "Honestly, rebuilding," Olivia replied with surprising candor. "Nathan and I, well, it didn't work out." "I heard," Sophia said carefully. Olivia's perfectly manicured hand brushed an invisible speck from her sleeve. "I should have seen the pattern. Nathan pursues what's new and shiny, then discards it when the novelty wears off." She studied Sophia with new interest. "But you're doing well. I heard about your feature in City Style magazine." "Yes, things are going well," Sophia confirmed, still wary of Olivia's intentions. "Good for you," Olivia said, and the absence of condescension in her tone seemed genuine. Listen, I know this is awkward, but I'm handling PR for the Women in Business Showcase next month. We need a florist who understands aesthetic branding. Would you be interested? The invitation, unexpected but potentially valuable, left Sophia momentarily speechless. I'd need to see the details, she finally said. Of course, I'll email you. Olivia hesitated. And Sophia? For what it's worth, I'm sorry about how things happened with Nathan. Neither of us deserved his approach to relationships. As Olivia walked away, Sophia realized something profound. The women Nathan had pitted against each other might actually be natural allies. 2 days later, Sophia received news that her loan had been approved. The expansion of Petal and Stem could begin, including renovations to the adjacent space for preserved beauty. That evening, she and Ethan celebrated with dinner at a small riverside restaurant. To new beginnings, Ethan toasted, raising his glass. And to growth, Sophia added, clinking her glass against his. She felt a fullness in her chest that had nothing to do with the excellent food and everything to do with the journey of the past months. Later, walking along the river's edge beneath a canopy of stars, Sophia shared something that had been weighing on her. I worry sometimes that I'm succeeding only because of connections. You, the botanical garden, now even Olivia. That I haven't truly earned this on my own. Ethan stopped walking and turned to face her. Connections matter in business, in life too. But they only open doors. They don't build what's inside. Your talent, your vision, your perseverance, those are what turn opportunities into success. Nathan always made me feel like I needed him to succeed, she admitted. That was about control, not support. Ethan's voice held no judgment, only understanding. Real support empowers independence, not dependence. The distinction resonated deeply with Sophia. For years, she'd accepted Nathan's narrative that her success depended on his guidance. Now she recognized that true partnership enhanced rather than diminished individual strength. I have something to show you, Ethan said, reaching into his pocket. He withdrew a small wooden box with intricate floral patterns carved into its surface. Inside lay a pendant unlike any Sophia had seen, a delicate silver frame containing preserved forget-me-nots and tiny ferns, similar to her own work but with unique elements. You made this? She asked, astonished. I took a botanical pressing workshop, Ethan admitted, looking slightly embarrassed. I wanted to understand your art better. The instructor said I had promising technique but questionable artistic vision. Sophia laughed, deeply touched by his effort to connect with her passion. It's beautiful, truly. I thought it could be the first official piece in your preserved beauty collection, he explained. Not made by you, but inspired by you. A reminder that your vision influences others. As Sophia fastened the pendant around her neck, she realized how far she had come from the woman who had allowed herself to be diminished. The seeds of courage planted during her darkest moments had taken root, growing into something stronger and more resilient than she could have imagined. The following morning, Sophia signed the lease for the expansion space. As she stood in the empty room, sunlight streaming through dusty windows, she envisioned the possibilities. Work tables for crafting preserved botanical art, display cases for her jewelry line, perhaps even a small area for workshops. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Heard about your expansion, ambitious move, coffee to discuss potential investors. 6 months ago, such a message would have sent her spiraling into self-doubt and seeking his approval. Today, she simply texted back, "No thank you. I've got this covered." As she set her phone aside and began measuring the walls for displays, Sophia felt a profound sense of alignment with her values, her vision, and most importantly, with herself. The woman who had once been told her dreams were too small was now creating a space big enough to contain them all. And in that moment of quiet triumph, Sophia understood that the greatest expansion wasn't the physical shop space, but the growth within herself, the capacity to recognize her worth and nurture it with the same care she gave to her most precious blooms. Garden of Second Chances, November painted the city in amber and russet, leaves twirling from trees like nature's confetti. Inside petal and stem, transformation bloomed with equal vibrancy. The expanded space, now connected to the original shop, through an archway adorned with preserved vines and dried flowers, housed Preserved Beauty, Sophia's new botanical art collection. Glass display cases showcased pendants containing pressed wildflowers, shadow boxes with artfully arranged dried botanicals and wedding bouquet preservation pieces that had become her signature offering. A small workshop area in the back hosted twice-weekly classes that consistently sold out. The holiday orders are already surpassing last year's numbers, Mia reported, now the shop's manager, while Sophia focused on the artistic direction of both businesses. And 3 more wedding planners have asked about partnerships. Sophia nodded, making notes in her planner. We might need to hire another assistant for the spring season. Sofia Navarro considering further expansion? Mia teased. Who would have thought? Who indeed? Certainly not the woman who had stood among the wreckage of her relationship less than a year ago, questioning her worth and purpose. That version of Sophia seemed like a pressed flower herself now, recognizable but fundamentally transformed by time and pressure. The bell above the door chimed, and Sophia looked up to see Olivia entering, elegant as always in a camel coat and burgundy scarf. The Women in Business Showcase Committee is still receiving compliments about your installations, Olivia announced by way of greeting. 2 corporations have asked for your contact information for their holiday events. The unlikely friendship that had developed between Sophia and Olivia surprised them both. Their shared experience with Nathan had created an initial connection, but their professional respect for each other's work had built something genuine. I've been meaning to ask, Olivia continued, examining a new display of Christmas ornaments, containing preserved holly berries and evergreen snippets. Have you heard Nathan's engaged? Sophia's hands stilled momentarily before resuming their work. No, I hadn't heard. Recently. Announced last week. She's a client from the West Ridge Development, heiress to a real estate fortune. Olivia's tone remained neutral, but her raised eyebrow spoke volumes. I thought you should know in case it comes up. Thank you, Sophia said, surprised by her own reaction, or rather, the lack of it. The news felt distant, like hearing about a character from a book she'd read long ago. I hope they're happy. After Olivia left, Sophia considered how differently she might have received this news months earlier. Nathan's engagement would have once felt like final confirmation of her inadequacy. Now it barely rippled the surface of her peace. That evening, Sophia and Ethan strolled through the Botanical Gardens' winter light installation, their breath visible in the crisp air. Their relationship had deepened with the changing seasons, each month adding layers of understanding and trust. The garden committee loved your proposal for the spring exhibition, Ethan mentioned, squeezing her gloved hand, especially the interactive element with community participation. The exhibition, Growth Patterns Community Through Bloom, would be Sophia's largest artistic undertaking yet. It would feature installations created with pressed and preserved flowers contributed by community members, each with a story of personal growth attached. It's still hard to believe sometimes, Sophia admitted as they paused beneath an archway of twinkling lights, that people value my vision this way. I'm not surprised at all, Ethan replied. You've always seen beauty where others didn't look. It was just a matter of helping others see it too. His words warmed her more than her woolen coat. Olivia told me Nathan's engaged, she said, the non sequitur surprising even herself. Ethan studied her face carefully. How do you feel about that? Relieved, she answered honestly. Not because I want him back, I don't, but because it confirms what I've come to understand. Our relationship wasn't about me being inadequate, it was about being incompatible. He needed someone who reflected his ambitions. I needed someone who respected mine. That's quite an insight, Ethan observed. It took time, Sophia acknowledged. And distance, and, she added, looking up at him with a smile, having someone in my life who shows me what healthy support actually looks like. 3 days later, Sophia conducted her most popular workshop, Preserving Meaningful Moments, teaching participants how to create keepsakes from significant botanical elements. The class had drawn an eclectic group, a young widow preserving her husband's favorite flowers, a retiring teacher with flowers from her students, a couple celebrating their 50th anniversary. As Sophia demonstrated the delicate process of pressing flowers between glass, the shop door opened, admitting a gust of cold air and an unexpected visitor. Nathan stood awkwardly in the entrance, more subdued than she'd ever seen him. Sophia's heart quickened, but not with the anxiety his presence once triggered. "We're in the middle of a workshop," she said quietly, approaching him. "Can I help you with something?" "I heard about your success," Nathan replied, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "I wanted to see it for myself." His gaze traveled around the expanded space, taking in the thriving business that had once been just a hobby in his estimation. "Congratulations," he added. "And on the botanical garden exhibition. That's impressive." The compliment, delivered, without qualifications or backhanded components, seemed to cost him effort. "Thank you," Sophia said simply. "I heard congratulations are in order for you as well, on your engagement." Nathan nodded, fidgeting with his coat sleeve. "Cassandra is... she understands my world." The echo of his words from their breakup hung between them. This time, however, they carried no sting. "I'm glad," Sophia replied, and meant it. "Everyone deserves someone who understands their world. I didn't always," Nathan began, then stopped. "I could have been more supportive of your dreams." The admission, perhaps the closest thing to an apology Nathan was capable of offering, reflected a self-awareness Sophia hadn't expected from him. "We weren't right for each other," she said gently, "but I learned a lot from our time together." "As did I," Nathan replied, his gaze shifting to where Ethan had just entered through the back door, carrying supplies for the workshop. "He's good for you. I can see that." "We're good for each other," Sophia corrected. "That's the difference." Nathan's nod contained resignation and perhaps a flicker of genuine regret. "I should let you get back to your class. I just wanted to..." He gestured vaguely. "Anyway, good luck with everything, Sophia." As he turned to leave, Sophia called after him, "Nathan, I hope you find happiness with Cassandra." The words weren't offered from a place of lingering attachment, but from the perspective of someone who had found her own happiness and could genuinely wish the same for others, even those who had once diminished her. After the workshop concluded and the participants departed with their preserved treasures, Sophia and Ethan remained to tidy the space. Snow had begun to fall outside, dusting the city in pristine white. Nathan seemed different, Ethan observed cautiously, having witnessed their brief interaction. "He did," Sophia agreed. "Maybe he's growing too." "Very generous of you to see it that way," Ethan noted, his admiration evident. Sophia arranged dried lavender into bundles as she considered this. "I've realized something important. Holding on to resentment was keeping me tethered to who I was in that relationship, someone who doubted her worth. Letting go wasn't about forgiving him. It was about fully becoming myself." Later that evening, in the quiet of her apartment, now redecorated to fully reflect her aesthetic without compromise, Sophia put the finishing touches on a special project. A shadow box contained carefully arranged botanicals, a dried rose from her first successful wedding commission, lavender from the farmer's market where she'd stood up to Nathan, a pressed daisy from her childhood garden where her love of flowers began, and a forget-me-not from Ethan's pendant. Each element represented a chapter in her journey, not just the blossoms, but the thorns as well. Together they formed a garden of second chances, a visual reminder that growth often requires both nurturing and pruning. When Ethan arrived for dinner, Sophia presented him with the finished piece. "For your office," she explained. "To remind you of the role you played in helping me bloom." "I didn't make you bloom, Sophia," he corrected gently, admiring the intricate arrangement. "You were always capable of that. I just made sure not to block your light." As they shared a meal at her kitchen table, the same one where she had once agonized over expansion plans with self-doubt as her only companion, Sophia reflected on the profound transformation of her life. Her business flourished, yes, but, more importantly, she had cultivated something even more valuable, the ability to recognize her own worth. "I have something to ask you," Ethan said as they finished dinner. "My mother's turning 71 next month." "Another hydrangea emergency?" Sophia teased, recalling their first meeting. "Actually, I was hoping you might join us for the celebration. My family has been asking to meet the woman behind the remarkable botanical pieces adorning my home and office." The invitation, to step further into each other's worlds, carried weight beyond the simple words. "I'd love to," Sophia replied, her smile reflecting the certainty she now carried within herself. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the city in possibilities as vast and unique as snowflakes themselves. Inside, warmed by shared understanding and mutual respect, Sophia and Ethan began planning for a future neither could have imagined a year before, one where they could grow together, without diminishing each other's light. As for the small flower shop that had started it all, it continued to flourish much like its owner, no longer forgotten or overlooked but recognized for its true value by those with eyes to see and hearts to appreciate the beauty of authenticity in a world too often focused on appearances. And, in this garden of second chances, Sophia had discovered the most important bloom of all, the flowering of her own self-worth, which, once fully rooted, could never again be easily uprooted by another's careless hands.